Thank you for coming today. We're going to go ahead and get started. The District Attorney's Investigation Bureau has completed a significant number of our interviews, and this is all involving the March 1st incident at the 1038 East Laurel Drive address in Salinas. Today we're presenting some of the facts as we currently know them. The case is still ongoing. We will not be rendering an opinion today. We'll talk about who the officers are that were involved, what weapons they were using, excuse me, what their training is, and excuse me, at the conclusion we'll show you some body camera footage of Officer Raul Rosales, who was a hostage negotiator who was attempting to communicate with Ms. Rodriguez. Keep in mind, by law, the district attorney's role is to evaluate the use of force and the conduct of the officers from the perspective of a reasonable officer in the circumstances that they were at the time. So what we have here is we have the command staff. There were a number of commanders on scene. We have Commander John Murray. He's got 23 years of experience. His role was a SWAT and hostage negotiator team commander. Commander Brian Kupak, he has 22 years of experience. He was the patrol watch commander. Sergeant Stephen Craig, he had 20 years on as a police officer, and he was a SWAT team leader. And Sergeant Dale Fors, he has 15 years on, and he was the SWAT team leader as well. He's a co-leader. The involved officers, you've previously been given their names by Salinas PD, but they include Officer Brian McKinley with 13 years of experience. He's completed a 40-hour course of CIT training. SWAT Officer Robert Miller, 11 years on the force between a couple of different agencies, and he has received a 40-hour course of CIT training as well. And Officer Carlo Caluped, he's got 5.5 years. He has also attended and completed the 40-hour CIT training. The officers that were involved had different types of weapons. Officer McKinley had a Colt M4 rifle, and he discharged 8 rounds. Officer Robert Miller had a Bushmaster rifle, and he discharged 8 rounds. And Officer Carlo Caluped had a Colt M4 rifle, and he discharged 2 rounds. None of the shooting officers had body-worn cameras. There were 10 other officers who did have body-worn cameras and who had them activated. That included Alejandro Rodriguez, Christopher Neff, David Puckett, Jordi Urita, Joshua Lind, Oscar Solis, Raul Rosales, Roberto Hernandez, and Timothy Simpson, and Sergeant Stephen Craig. So what we know is that on March 1st of 2019, Ms. Rodriguez and her boyfriend had a dating relationship for approximately a year and a half. Ms. Rodriguez lived in a broken down Ford Explorer in the front yard of 1038 East Laurel Drive. And Ms. Rodriguez and the resident of 1038 Laurel Drive did not have a positive relationship. Generally, Ms. Rodriguez was prohibited from entering into the residence at the 1038 address. About 10 o'clock that morning, on March 1st, Ms. Rodriguez and her boyfriend had an argument. Her boyfriend left the area following the argument, and Ms. Rodriguez then became involved in an argument with the resident at 1038 East Laurel Drive. During the argument, the resident said that Ms. Rodriguez pulled out a screwdriver and threatened to kill her. At 10:47, the resident then called 911 to report the emergency and said that Ms. Rodriguez had threatened to kill her and had armed herself with a screwdriver and was still holding it in her hand. And so law enforcement then responded. They arrived, first officers arrived at 10:54 on March 1st. and began to interview the resident. She again told the officers that Ms. Rodriguez had brandished a screwdriver at her, told her, "I'm going to fucking kill you," and then had the screwdriver in her hand, and that she had been threatened in the past by Ms. Rodriguez. She then told the officers that Ms. Rodriguez was located in the broken down Explorer in front of the residence. Officers heard a female talking inside the vehicle, and the windows were spray painted with black, so you couldn't see into the windows. There was one window that actually had a glass broken out, and there was plastic bags hanging from it. The officers began knocking at the door of the Explorer, trying to get Ms. Rodriguez to respond and to come out and speak with them. She immediately began yelling at the officers to stay back. She then said that she had a gun, and then she took her arm outside that broken window with the plastic bag, extending her arm with the firearm in it. This is actually an airsoft pistol. It's a BB gun, and this is the item that she was holding when she brandished it at the officers. Once the officers saw the weapon, they backed away from the vehicle and took a position of safety. They made a notation that the weapon that they observed did not have an orange tip, which would traditionally represent it to be a replica or not a real gun. They continued ordering her to drop the weapon, and her response was to tell the officers, "Get closer so that I can shoot you in the head. I'm going to kill you." After the officers had retreated to a place of safety, they attempted to open up a dialogue with Ms. Rodriguez. At approximately 11:15, Ms. Rodriguez's boyfriend returned to the area, which was now controlled by the police, and told officers that the gun, in fact, was a BB gun, and that there were actually two guns in the vehicle, but that they were both BB guns. Our office reviewed radio communications, and it revealed that the officers indicated that the gun did not have any markings on it, and it looked to be a real gun in appearance. Also, around 11:15, the police contacted behavioral health and requested their assistance. Medical personnel was already on site, and they were staged to participate and help if necessary, and they remained there for the duration of this contact. The SWAT team commander, John Murray, was notified of the incident and ordered the negotiation team and SWAT team out to assist. At 11:23 in the morning, Ms. Rodriguez sent a message to her mother via Facebook saying that she was going to kill herself. Ms. Rodriguez's mother told investigators that she spoke to Ms. Rodriguez around noon and again around 12:25, and according to Ms. Rodriguez's mother, Ms. Rodriguez sounded upset and threatened several times to kill herself. Her mother made numerous attempts to try and convince her not to do that and to try and calm her down. However, Ms. Rodriguez continued to threaten that she was going to kill herself. Ms. Rodriguez's mother told investigators that she could hear the police in the background requesting Ms. Rodriguez to comply with the officers' orders. At 11:54, officers decided to break out the rear window of the SUV so that they could get better communication with Ms. Rodriguez and to be able to see her. They observed a large number of blankets and other materials within the SUV. Ms. Rodriguez became very agitated and threatened again to use the gun to kill the officer, and that she was getting mad. At 12:07, the hostage negotiator, Officer Raul Rosales, located Ms. Rodriguez's cell phone and attempted to call and text her. Ms. Rodriguez did not respond to any of the calls or texts at that time. Prior to Officer Rosales trying to contact Ms. Rodriguez, he spoke to representatives from mental health. The representatives told Officer Rosales that they were dealing with someone who was psychotic, hearing voices, depressed, had paranoia, was delusional, and was having mood fluctuations. Officer Rosales was also told that Ms. Rodriguez had had a baby 3 weeks earlier, and the baby had been removed from Ms. Rodriguez's custody because the baby was born with methamphetamine in its system. With that information, Officer Rosales then tried to communicate with Ms. Rodriguez. At 12:58, Ms. Rodriguez threw a box cutter knife out of the Explorer and continued to talk to herself and not engage with the officers on a constant basis. At 1 o'clock, Officer Rosales did, in fact, make contact with Ms. Rosales. He had noticed at that point that she was acting paranoid and talking to herself. At 1:09, Ms. Rodriguez yelled at officers, saying, "I'm going to shoot you." Ms. Rodriguez raised her right hand while holding onto the gun. The officers did not fire at Ms. Rodriguez. She yelled, "I hate all of you and I don't give a fuck." I'm going to show you, well, no, I'll wait a minute. At 1:33, Ms. Rodriguez suddenly flashed the handgun again, raising it up and down very fast. Ms. Rodriguez laughed at the officers who flinched, and you can see it in the video, when they saw her come up with the gun. Officer Miller said he observed Ms. Rodriguez make the sign of the cross. And Officer McKinley said the reason he didn't shoot at Ms. Rodriguez at the first 2 times is because she raised and dropped the gun so fast that by the time the safety on his weapon was off, the threat had passed at that moment. Officer McKinley stated that he believed that Ms. Rodriguez was building up the courage to shoot at the officers, and when she raised the gun, they were ordering her to drop the gun and not raise it up again. At 1:36, Ms. Rodriguez told the officers, "You had your chance." Officer Rosales asked her what she meant by that. And 17 seconds later, Ms. Rodriguez brought up the gun again. This was a different type of way she brought it up. Officer McKinley stated that she had positioned herself in the far corner of the SUV and was sitting up more erect and facing the officers more directly. She pointed the muzzle directly at the officers while yelling, "Wee!" Officers discharged their firearms at Ms. Rodriguez. All of the officers stated that they were afraid, not only for themselves, but for their other officers, and particularly the hostage negotiator officers who were not in a position of protection. They were standing upright and away from protection, which is part of the negotiation techniques. In reviewing the body camera, Ms. Rodriguez brandished the gun 4 times during the incident, with the last 2 times occurring within 17 seconds of each other. Each of the shooting officers were interviewed separately. None of the shooting officers reviewed any body camera footage prior to the interviews. So this next, this video is a 34 minutes long, 33 minutes long, and you're welcome to sit through it all, but I'm going to go ahead and play it because I think it demonstrates the contact that was going on between Ms. Rodriguez and the officers.
Okay. And Brenda, do you prefer English or Spanish? ¿Ah? ¿Qué prefieres hablar, inglés o español? Tengo entendido que tú tuviste a tu bebé hace 3 semanas. imagino que estás pasando por mucho ahora, pero necesito que me digas para poder saber qué es lo que está pasando. ¿Me puedes decir? Brenda. ¿Qué sientes en este momento? No, thanks. Brenda. ¿Tú sientes como quieres hacerte daño a ti mismo? Brenda. Entiendo que tú tenías una cita con Nayeli, ¿no? ¿De qué era la cita? ¿De qué era la cita, Nayeli? Brenda? ¿De qué era tu cita con Nayeli? Me imagino que estás pasando por muchas cosas. Brenda. Si sabes que estamos aquí porque queremos ayudarte. Lo único que sabemos, Brenda, es de que tuviste una discusión. ¿Eso es lo que pasó? So all we want to do is we just want to help you, Brenda. And all I'm asking you to do is just step out of the vehicle, okay? And then we'll sit down and talk. I can only imagine what you're going through, okay? ¿Que no hagamos qué? Brenda, okay, I understand it's not necessary. That's what. Okay. Brenda, entonces, ¿por qué no me haces el favor y sales del vehículo? Okay. Pues lo único que queremos es ayudarte, Brenda. Okay. Just have a fetch call and then try to get some until she comes from if she talks to her. Brenda. Brenda, ¿hablaste con tu mamá? Okay. ¿Cómo podemos ayudarte, Brenda? Okay. Yeah. She's paranoid. Brenda, ¿estás hablando con alguien? ¿Estás hablando con alguien? Who are you talking to, Brenda? I was calling you on the phone. Will you answer the phone? Okay. Brenda. Oye, Brenda. Pedro acá está preocupado. Pedro está preocupado. Lo único que quiere es de que salgas para acá. ¿Ah? Brenda, ¿tuviste una discusión con Pedro? ¿Tuviste una discusión con Pedro? Well, he loves you too, and he's... Okay. Well, I talked to Pacioni. So I talked... Brenda, can you... Sadly, lifted her right hand, so she has a hand. Okay. Brenda, you have a baby? Okay. Okay.
She lifted it once already.
Brenda, I just want to talk, okay? Please don't reach for that gun, okay? Brenda, listen. Pedro's here, okay? All Pedro wants you to do, just step out of the vehicle, okay? We can sit down and talk. Hopefully you guys get some counseling, some help so you can be a family, that family that you want to have. Okay? Well, we care, Brenda. That's why we're here. Okay? And all I'm asking, Brenda, is that you just step out of the car so we can talk. What can I do for you, Brenda? I called your social worker, Nayeli. Okay? She told me that she's been wanting to meet with you. She told me about your baby Victoria. Okay? Do you want me to set up an appointment with her? What do you want to do? You want to have a family? Brenda? What was that? Brenda? What is it going to take for you to step out of the vehicle? All we want to do is we just want to help you, okay? Maybe get you back on your medication. Okay, no quieres sentir qué. Quiero entender lo que estás diciendo. Are you listening? Are you hearing voices, Brenda? ¿Estás escuchando a alguien más que a mí? So, ¿qué va a tomar Brenda para que salgas del vehículo? Y te podamos ayudar. Es lo único que queremos hacer. No queremos hacerte daño a ti ni hacerle daño a nadie. Lo único que queremos es ayudarte. Pero necesito tu ayuda, Brenda. Necesito que salgas del vehículo. Es lo único que queremos. Ayúdame a entender qué está pasando, Brenda. Si puede salir del vehículo, Brenda. Brenda. Brenda, escucha, no queremos hacer daño a nadie, ¿ok? Queremos ayudarte. Y nada más necesito tu ayuda, ¿ok? Nada más lo único que necesito es de que salgas del vehículo, es todo. Nada más sal del vehículo con tus manos arriba, así. ¿Mandé? I guess not channel 4 fetch. Brenda, ¿qué puedo hacer para ayudarte? ¿Cómo te puedo ayudar, Brenda? Brenda, ¿naciste aquí en Salinas? Brenda. Brenda, ¿naciste aquí en Salinas? Brenda, ¿recuerdas la última vez que hablaste con tu trabajadora Nayeli? Oscar. We'll call Oscar. Any info from the mom? Yes. Maybe that's because it's a child. Yeah. I'm on channel 4. If you want to call Nayeli back, as the social worker, 755. There's a direct line. Yeah, 8454. And Nayeli Julian, she's a CPS case worker. See if she can give you more detail. She just listed them on, yeah. She looked at the other phone calls. She's not wanting to answer. And then she's tired, she's hungry, and find out what the dialogue was between her and mom. And I'm on board. Brenda, ¿cómo te sientes? ¿Cómo te sientes, Brenda? ¿Qué estás pensando? ¿Cómo te puedo ayudar, Brenda? Yeah, that's the one. I called. No, and she just said, fuck all these private phone calls. So she wasn't answering. Yeah. Okay. Brenda, ¿te estás cansando? She's getting tired. ¿Quieres que te mire un paramédico? ¿Quieres tomar agua, Brenda? Brenda, ayúdame a entender qué es lo que está pasando, Brenda. ¿Qué está pasando? ¿Qué está pasando, Brenda? ¿Por qué no quieres salir? ¿Ah? ¿Estás pensando en tu hija Victoria? ¿Quieres mirar a tu hija Victoria? ¿Brenda? ¿Brenda, quieres mirarla para poder hablar con la trabajadora social? ¿Quieres que le hable a Nayeli? ¿Quieres que le hable a Nayeli para que haga una cita? Lo único que queremos, Brenda, es de que salgas del vehículo. ¿Sí puedes hacer eso? Brenda, ¿sí puedes hacer eso? Ok. ¿Por qué no quieres salir? ¿Mande? ¿Por qué no quieres salir del vehículo? ¿Mande? ¿Por qué no te da la gana? Ok. Pero lo único que queremos es ayudarte, Brenda, es todo. ¿Ah? Lo único que queremos es ayudarte, Brenda. No te queremos hacer daño, no queremos hacerle daño a nadie. Al contrario, queremos ayudarte a ti. Para que te puedas reunir con tu hija Victoria. ¿Mande? ¿Qué quieres que yo haga para que tú salgas del vehículo? Brenda, ¿qué quieres que haga para que salgas del vehículo? ¿Cómo te puedo ayudar? ¿Cómo te puedo ayudar, Brenda? ¿Sabes que lo único que queremos es que te queremos ayudar? The voices from the behind that vehicle that she's seen. Those before it? Yeah, so if we can just put the crack tape farther. Because she's focused on those people. Brenda? Huh? Hey, Brenda. Lo único que queremos es ayudarte, ¿ok? Okay. What do you mean by that? What do you mean we had a chance? Huh? Brenda, what do you mean we had our chance? I know that you and Pedro had an argument today. I know you want to build a family. Okay? All relationships have arguments. Okay? But if we want a better relationship, there's always help. And I can help you look for that help. Okay? Brenda, it was just an argument. Okay? It was just an argument. Let's not make it any more difficult. Okay? But I need your help, Brenda. What is it going to take? Brenda, what is it that you want? Can you tell me? Brenda? You start seeing that, just like what Mel said, up and down. It's like, she's calm, she's getting tired, so we're, yeah, so. Yeah, I told her she has her phone with her. I told her she would answer. She said no, but she's getting a little bit tired. There was one point when I was here that she kind of went just straight up. It's very close. She's getting tired. She's getting calm. Right now, I'm going to look around and see what she got. I told him. Hey, Victoria, or Brenda? Brenda, if I call you on your phone, will you answer so that way we're not yelling at each other? Okay, we can do that. Okay? That's fine with me. But I want to have a conversation too, Brenda. I want to understand what's going on with you. Okay? Can you tell me? I know this is not you. Okay? And I would assume it's probably because you haven't been taking your medication for a while. What are you doing, Brenda? Are you talking to somebody? Brenda, ¿a qué te refieres de eso? ¿Qué? Brenda. Nadie te va a pegar, Brenda. Brenda, ¿qué puedo hacer para ti? Ok, ¿y cuál es tu idioma? ¿Español o inglés? Dialecto, ok. ¿Qué puedo decir en dialecto? No sé dialecto. Ok, pues entonces vamos a hablar español, ¿sí? ¿Quieres que hablemos español? Brenda, ¿hablamos español? ¿A español hablamos? Ok. So, Brenda, estamos aquí porque queremos ayudarte. Y sabes que Nayeli dijo que qué bueno. Well, that's good. That's what I want you. Qué bueno. Okay. Y eso es lo que queremos, Brenda. Okay. Okay. Pues Brenda, lo único que quiero que hagas es de que salgas del vehículo, Brenda. Es todo lo que quiero que hagas. ¿Ok? Y te vamos a ayudar. Es que siento lo que estás pasando, Brenda. ¿Ok? Pero tú adentro del vehículo y nosotros acá pues, no te podemos ayudar. Mira, lo único que queremos, sales del vehículo para afuera, podemos darte ayuda, podemos hablarle a Nayeli. ¿Ok? Vamos a hablar.
Drop the gun. Drop the gun.
Brenda,
Don't pick that gun up again, Brenda.
we don't want to shoot Brenda, just drop the gun, okay?
Gun.
Brenda, just drop the gun.
Suspect down. Suspect down.
Okay. Are you guys ready for it?
Coming off.
Not much to it.
So this next clip is very short, and it's a slow-down version of one of the times that she pointed the gun at the officers. It's zoomed in a little bit, so it's a little blurry.
So I talked. Brenda,
The clicking sound you hear in the video is actually the officers putting the safety off their firearms at that point, and that's when they didn't discharge their weapons because they couldn't get the safety off and discharge the weapon at that point. This next clip is another close-up. And it's a frame by frame where she's bringing the gun out and pointing it at the officers.
Nayeli, okay? Vamos a hablar.
Drop the gun. Drop the gun.
Don't pick that gun up again, Brenda. We don't want to shoot Brenda, just.
This is a slowed down version of the final time she pointed the gun. So Commander Murray, who was in charge as the SWAT commander, was questioned about the different options that were available to him other than the shooting situation. Commander Murray indicated that he was aware of, there was talk that the guns in the vehicle might be fake, but each of the patrol officers who had occasion to see the firearm said that it appeared to be real, and that there was nothing about the markings on the vehicle, the shape of, or excuse me, nothing about the shape of the firearm that made it appear that it was not a real firearm. He said he knew he was dealing with a situation where the person had been seen for mental illness recently. She had 2 outstanding felony warrants, one of which was for criminal threats. The other was for a narcotics offense. And additionally, she was being unresponsive to the officers that were trying to talk to her. He said he wanted to try and slow everything down and was making preparations for the hostage negotiating team, the SWAT team, and behavioral health to be at that site for a very long time. He did have other options that he had available to him, but decided not to employ. He had the canine officer, he had a taser, and then the 40mm rubber bullet launcher. He didn't want to do anything that would agitate her more than she was already exhibiting her agitation toward officers. And he wanted her to surrender peacefully. In considering each of those options, the gas grenade option was discarded because of all of the flammable materials inside the vehicle. Additionally, it would agitate Ms. Rodriguez and obscure their ability to look into the vehicle. The taser and 40mm rubber bullet launcher were also considered but discarded. Ms. Rodriguez's head at that time was the only thing exposed, and the 40mm rubber bullet launcher is considered less lethal except when struck in the head, so that was discarded. As far as the taser, it was unlikely to deploy competently given her location in the vehicle, and it would further increase her agitation, so that was discarded as well. The canine officer was kept back because the canine was barking so much it was interfering with the officer's ability to communicate with Ms. Rodriguez. But the officer was kept nearby so that if Ms. Rodriguez would leave the vehicle and try and get back into the residence and barricade herself there, that the dog might be able to restrain her prior to getting into the house. So that option was there, but not utilized at the point. So Officer Rosales' video has been sent to the emails of the credentialed mediator today. Additionally, our investigators looked at toxicology results. According to a lab report, Ms. Rodriguez had an antidepressant called citalopram in her system at the time of the shooting. Due to privacy reasons, our office is unable to get her medical records, so we can't verify if that was an actual prescription, but we know that it is an antidepressant and it was in her system at the time of the shooting in substantial quantities. However, in addition to that antidepressant, we located additional prescriptions located in the vehicle. One prescription was for chloram, which is also known as Lexapro, which is much easier to pronounce. This is also an antidepressant, and it's used to treat anxiety and major depressive disorders. The prescription was filled on February 20th of this year, and it was filled with 30 tablets, 22 of which were still left in the bottle. This is the condition of the vehicle, the interior of the vehicle that was searched. And these were some of the pill bottles that were located in that area of the vehicle. And then an additional pill bottle was located in another portion of the vehicle. All of these are prescribed to Brenda Rodriguez. The additional prescriptions were for prenatal vitamins. That particular prescription was full and had been issued back in 2018. There was an iron supplement that had been issued in February of this year, along with the other prescriptions, and then a supplement for her digestive system. In addition to those pill containers, we did find 3 of the tablets of the antidepressant that was in her system, and those 3 tablets were loose in the vehicle. Ms. Rodriguez died as a result of multiple gunshot wounds, and we don't have the amount of gunshot wounds because the forensic pathology report hasn't been generated yet by the forensic pathologist. We're still continuing our investigation and doing additional interviews, and we will release our findings upon the completion of our investigation.
A few questions on the mental health aspect I've heard from the officers. Is there a difference between the crisis negotiation team and the crisis intervention team with the Salinas PD?
Crisis intervention training
Okay.
teaches officers processes to deal with that situation.
Okay, and are all of those officers within the hostage negotiation team?
All of the officers on the hostage negotiating team are CIT trained.
Right, okay. And then I think you were saying that behavioral health was called into the situation, correct?
Yes, they were called
Did
in.
they have direct contact with Brenda, or was all the communication through the officer that was on?
All the communication was through the officer. Behavioral health was, I believe they were contacted at 11:15,
Okay,
and they did not arrive on scene until 15 minutes before the shooting happened. And so at that point, all the communication was going through the officer.
okay, but they had it wasn't like they were telling the officer to tell her something. All the communication on the mental health crisis end was through the officer directly. They weren't on site talking to the officer.
No, but the officer had called behavioral health and talked to a representative at behavioral health since they didn't have a crisis worker on scene yet, and received that information about her mental condition and the fact that she just had.
Based on, and that analysis of her mental condition, based on what the officers had told them about the situation, correct?
What the behavioral health told the officers.
Yeah. Okay.
They received that information directly from representatives of behavioral health,
Okay.
just not the behavioral health person that arrived on scene.
Gotcha. Okay.
Jeannine, why didn't they have body cameras on the 3 officers who shot?
I can't answer that. That's a procedural question that the police department will have to discuss.
Okay.
But if you go back and look at the body cam footage, the reason why Officer Rosales' camera was at a favorable angle is because he wasn't in a protected setting. So even if they had the body cams on, it would have been absolutely blocked by the shields that they were hiding behind for protection.
Jeannine, so there were 2 BB guns in the car?
There were 2. The other one was also a BB gun, and that one did have an orange tip on it.
So there's no weapons in the car that were actual real firearms?
There were no real firearms in the car.
How many shots were fired?
There were 18 shots fired. Any other questions? All right, thank you for coming.
I was wondering, I saw that in the transcript, only Officer Raul Rosales was identified. I was wondering, the other officers, Are any of them the ones who were involved?
There will be some of them that are involved, and you can, but it's, the transcriptionist is not a law enforcement transcriptionist, so she wasn't able to identify who those people were, other than Officer Rosales.
Question about her living situation. So she was living in a car. What was that deal, between the landlord who owned
So the landlord's son, well, the woman who lived at that particular residence owned the vehicle. And her son is the boyfriend of Ms. Rodriguez. So,
And his name Pedro?
um,
It's Pedro.